Okay, here we go. Nice and quiet.
Sound speeds, camera rolling.
Holding for sound. Last looks. Calling for last looks.
And set and action.
I need to swap batteries.
You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard. Welcome to Making Movies is Hard, the podcast about the everyday struggles of the independent filmmaker. I am Liz Manischel.
And I am Alrik Bursell.
This week we have a most special interview with the amazing, astounding, stupendous, fantastic Joe Bob Briggs.
It's like those guys that used to be on the Ed Sullivan show that balance plates on the tops of bamboo poles, you know, and you spin the plate on the pole. And then you get about 30 of them going, and then you run back and forth across the stage trying to keep, you know, the last plate spinning. You know, that's sort of what a director does. And there aren't that many people that have the patience and the stamina to do that. But I really admire the ones who do. I admire anybody who finishes a film. You know, that's an amazing thing.
He's a host. He's a comedian. He's a celebrator of horror and exploitation films. He's a hero to all. But first, Alrik, you've got mail.
My breath catches in my chest until I hear three little words. You've got mail.
This week we have an iTunes review. Oh my God. Woo! Yay! iTunes review. This says an honest and inspiring conversation, I believe.
I hope so.
Left on October 14th from Jess822. Jess with a Z at the end of Jess 822. I have been listening to the podcast for several months and have thoroughly enjoyed Making Movies is Hard. As a filmmaker myself, I can truly relate to the ups and downs of independent filmmaking that Alrik and Liz so frequently discuss. I continue to be inspired by them and their guests to progress in my filmmaking journey. 4 stars. Thank you so much, Jessie. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to call you Jess. That's probably your name.
Yeah, most likely it's someone named Jess with the last name starting with a Z who was born on August 22nd.
Aha, smart. I'm curious though, why only 4 stars? Why not 5 stars?
I know. I did the same thing. I did the exact same thing. You know, there's this theory that you don't want to give things 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 because you're tripping up the algorithm, right? It's a meaningless review. So hopefully Jess Z822 was thinking, I'm going to give them an accurate but wonderful glowing review that only helps them in the algorithm.
Huh. Is that
or
true?
We just didn't make them happy, or they don't like it as much as a 5-star.
Is it better for some reason to get 4 stars than 5 stars?
For IMDb, you're supposed to tell people to give you, I think it's like 7 or 8 stars, because when you give 10, it's meaningless. I think it's all the extremes on the bell curve that like become meaningless, and they disregard them in your amalgamation of your reviews.
So if I really liked, like, let's say The Boys, and I gave it a 10 out of 10, like that review's meaningless, you know, that doesn't do anything.
I know that there are more statistical, meaningful things that are considered here, but I've been told that that 10 out of 10s they look like they're unrealistic reviews.
Huh. Interesting. We also have some wonderful new YouTube comments on our last episode of the show that just went up on Monday, which is really cool. Liz, did you want to read one of these?
This was with our interview with Oz Rodriguez, Vampires versus the Bronx. And Bernie Rao said, guys, this is a great and much needed podcast. I love it and good work. You guys rock, with the smiley face. And then Rafael Omar Cruz said, great episode. Love the podcast. Like, these are strangers and they like us and they enjoyed our interview with Oz Rodriguez. So win all around.
I think Rafael Omar Cruz has been a fan of the podcast for a while, because I'm pretty sure I saw his name on stuff like on Facebook likes and things like that. Bernie Rao, though, I don't recognize. And I apologize, Bernie, if you've been listening for just as long as Rafael has and I don't recognize the name. My bad. But thank you guys for commenting. It was so cool because he like popped up within the first like couple of days of the the podcast, the episode being up, and that's great. And I'm just hoping for more traction with YouTube. Just keep on going up and up and up.
I mean, we should promote it. We're gonna promote it more.
We're gonna promote it more. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing an okay job of promoting it. I need to do what I'm trying to do every week is post the last week's YouTube podcast the same week as I post the current week. So like people can, like if they missed last week, they can watch the video, and there it is. So if you guys want to be like these wonderful people, Jess Z822 or Bernie Rao or Rafael Omar Cruz, you can, reach out the ways they did. You could go on YouTube, leave a comment. You could go on iTunes, leave a review, or you could send us a question, a comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. And then, like if you really like the show, just like Jess did, you could leave a review. And I don't know, maybe make it 5 stars, maybe make it 4 stars. I don't know. Either way, whatever you feel in your heart.
Vote your heart. Yeah.
Liz, what are some other things people should do?
You can head over to our Patreon page. Thanks. Because it's going to come in backwards because of the magic of movie making, but it's our sticker. I'm just going to make it my face right now. This is what it looks like. It's beautiful. But great. This is the actual size. Just so I don't want to manipulate y'all. This is the size of it. So we have stickers at the $3 level, I believe.
Yes.
And pins, enamel pins at the $9 level. And then, we have that YouTube page. So if you want to check it out, the link for YouTube is on our Instagram bio. And we just appreciate you just listening. But if you're looking for something else to do, we just listed a bunch of things. So thank you.
But Liz, I think it's time for Soap Dish.
I'm Lori Craven, and I'm an actress.
An actress? Really? How nice for you. I'm Betsy Faye Sharon, and I'm a bitch.
So today we're doing something a little bit different on Soap Dish because people have been reaching out to me with their pitch decks for their movies, which has been really interesting because they'll send over a wonderful deck or they'll tell me about their film. And then, I ask questions like, oh yeah, so what's the budget and what are you thinking? And they're like, oh yeah, it's like a $5 million movie. Or this is a $10 million movie. And then I'm like, well, how much money have you raised? Where are you at in the process? And they're always like $0 money.
$0.
We maybe have some cast attachments, maybe, but obviously that doesn't really feel like a very real thing, or they'd be like, oh, this person's attached if it was actually a real attachment. So I was just thinking, it's like, okay, well, how do movies get made? Because there's all these people with these decks out there of movies that, probably won't get made or maybe will get made one day, but who knows how many pitch decks of unmade movies there are. There's probably thousands and thousands of them. But my question to you is you've made 2 features, and you were at one point that person with a pitch deck and no budget. How did you get it from that point there to actually making a movie?
I have crowdfunded all 3 of the features I've been attached to or have made. So I'm attached to a 3rd feature right now. And so there's always a little bit of base funding. So when people say, how much money have you raised? We always have a little bit in the coffer, right? But I also think that the sneaky way to do it is if you want to tell people that you already have an equity investor, and you yourself have put in a little bit of money during development, it's sneaky. But you could say, we already have an equity investor. Maybe you did put in a certain amount of money and you're expecting a return and you're investing in your project, and make it legally accurate to say that you have an equity investor. But I'm just saying there are ways that you could put money in, you could be the first money in. So, and it doesn't have to be millions of dollars or thousands of dollars. No one wants to be the first one in. And so that's what I'm addressing right here is to have a little bit of money in the bank account first before going out to investors, I think is smart because it shows you have traction and you're a desirable commodity. But I also think you need to create enough items to jump through enough hoops to show a potential investor that the train is moving. So I always say you got to have dates. You got to know when you're shooting. You got to be, do you have attachments? Do you not like the phrase, maybe attachments is scary? And if you're asking for $5 million, you better have a track record to show that you know how to handle that kind of money, because you can't just ask for, unless you were 10 years ago and wearing a baseball cap, you can't just ask for $10 million and you get a movie from a very one possibly mediocre short. Oh God, I feel mean today.
Oh, so who are you referencing there?
Oh no, I'm just thinking about all the guys in the mid 2000s who they're always pictured wearing baseball caps. This is like a thing that women in film say all the time. They're like, well, I'm not a guy in a baseball cap, so I'm not going to get the money.
Oh,
so like,
that's funny.
it's like they all like had an indie film that was like $1 million and under.
Oh, right. Yeah,
and then they got like a franchise film. So just saying,
right.
to look for $5 million, show that you can handle that money responsibly in your pitch deck, and maybe express a little bit about how the waterfall is going to go, and that you understand the major ramifications of that investment, and you understand the marketplace and really build a substantial deck to reflect that.
So I have a couple of follow-up questions. One is, when you say have some money to start, like how much money do you think you actually need to like actually make a difference in approaching people?
I've never fundraised for a $5 million movie, so I don't speak from experience.
Well, I mean, just throw the 5 millions out the window.
Yeah.
Just like you're just trying to make a movie for whatever you can. Like, you know,
I can say my first 2 features, I provided the majority of the financing through crowdfunding or through revenue from my first film.
Right.
So I had probably 30 to 50% gathered for both of them. And then it's, to have enough money where there's a real true chunk of money in there, a substantial amount. And that's why I encourage crowdfunding. But I know right now is not the time for crowdfunding.
Right. Yeah. 30 to 50% feels about right. Like if you can get that big of a percentage of your budget, then it actually will make a difference. But like for me, like I got probably, I don't know, maybe 5% of my budget together on my own. And it was enough to get my producer on board, but it wasn't really enough to do anything else. And, we had to like kind of treat all our other investors as first money. And they were my producer was referencing the term first money in like, until we raised like, more than half basically. Like he didn't really take it seriously until like we had like a really like a large amount of money. But like my 5% to me was like a lot of money, it wasn't a small amount by any means. It was like the most I'd ever gotten together ever, so I just think it's really challenging, a road to go. But yeah, I don't know. I do really think like getting the money or any kind of money is really important in the process.
But wait, going back to what you said, it's like you got your money together and then you attracted the attention of your first producer. Yeah, you didn't get the full budget immediately, but that's like the spokes of the wheel, right? And then like your next producer is like the axle. And then, it's like, it's this train. It's the train analogy. I truly believe in the train analogy. Yeah.
And it's, it just takes a long time too. It really does. Like it just takes a lot of energy. Like I was just talking to another filmmaker, and he was like, yeah, like I was like, yeah, if you're going to make a feature, like you're going to have to like, really want to be able to live with it for a long time. He's like, yeah, for like 1.5 years. And I was
sorry.
No.
Spit take.
Not 1.5 years. Like, 8 years, 6 years, 5 years. Like this is going to be your thing for a long time. And even when you're done with it, you're still going to be working on it in some form, or another. Like you probably still do bread and butter stuff, right?
Yes. Now? Yeah, absolutely. All the time. I was just thinking, I went to an investor today for feature 3, and I emailed this woman that I'm trying to connect with. And I found that it's a game of like constant feeding of the train of momentum. Like I can't even tell you how it happened, but like Fran Drescher retweeted something about our film recently. So it's like, you go and you share this potential investor. You say, look at this thing that Fran Drescher retweeted. It's like, it's not just one email. It's like 15 emails of reminders of little wins of like a deck, of a script, of a sizzle reel, it's like, and I said earlier, jumping through hoops, it's like, these are all little hoops, right? That you're jumping through to prove to them, I'm serious, I'm responsible, I'm putting this project first, I care about it more than many things in my life, and you can trust me with this money, right? So it's the long game of like, of persuasion. It's a very long game of persuasion and like convincing someone what I hope is the truth, which is that project deserves an investment.
Right. It deserves to exist.
Yeah.
The other question I wanted to ask you was like, what do you think is like a reasonable amount of money to ask for your second or your third feature? Like, let's say you've made a movie that's around, I don't know, let's say $100,000, and then you're trying to do your second movie, or like, let's say it's $500,000, whatever, anything. Yep. What do you think is like an appropriate budget for that director to take on? Like, do you think it's like, could you jump from 100,000 to $1 million, or is it more like, no, you got to go from like 100,000 to 500,000, or like 500,000 to $1 million, like then $1 million to 2 million, or I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I remember talking to Matt Enlow of Just Shoot It about this, where he was on like a very, because, you know, he's directed at all different levels. He's directed big budget, digital spots, commercial spots, but also he directed a fairly medium to low budget web series that got a lot of attention, right? And I remember he was on a commercial shoot and we were talking afterwards, and he's like, it was a lot of money. It was like, it was a commercial, but it was like a lot of money. And he was like, Liz, it was the same. It felt the same as the low budget shoot. It was like there were more chairs and there was nicer food, but it felt the same. And right. I think, I don't think you have to kind of tier your moves. I think you could go from 100,000 to $1 million. You know, it's like, are you a good storyteller? Are you responsible? Are you communicative? You know, all those great things. But if you're a good storyteller, you should be able to tell stories at many different levels. So I don't think it's about that, but I think for me, it's about what is that investor willing to invest in me? And then if it's not enough for the budget, then you have to find another one. So I don't think it's about getting permission to ask for a certain amount. It's like, you could work at any budget level as a storyteller, but what is that one individual going to give you? Like, remember that, remember we talked to the guy who did, he talked really fast.
Eugene Kochelarenko.
Remember he was like, ask for double and you'll get half?
Yeah.
That seemed like a good strategy to me, is to just ask for exactly what you want and then just take what they'll give you and then move on to the next person.
Or ask for double and then you'll get half of what you want. Or do you think that's not a good idea?
I think that was really smart of him, actually. But do you feel like you have to kind of tier up?
I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, I mean, I just think it's all about relationships and whose trust you gain, and then like what level they put you at in their own minds, you know, because obviously we've seen people who've never made a movie before who get $20 million to make their first movie, or $10 million or $5 million or $100 million. Like, you know, there's all examples. So I just think it's like the people who are giving you the money, it's like they are the ones who are deciding whether or not they think you're worthy of this challenge, you know? And so if someone likes you enough and they just think that like, hey, you're great, they might take a chance on you. I don't know. But I just think for me personally as a director, like I kind of like the idea of tearing up a little bit, you know, like I think trying to jump from, you know, doing my low budget sci-fi film to like, you know, a $20 million feature would be a little bit of little stressful, you know. I would rather like go to like a $2 million movie or a $5 million movie or a $500,000 movie, even just another one in that same range, just to kind of get more experience and just kind of get more comfortable doing it, you know. I
think there's like an invisible barrier around the $1 million mark where it's like, you'll meet people and they'll kind of judge you if you've made a film for under $1 million or over $1 million. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like they kind of put you in certain brackets, like you were saying, but like, I think that's a jump that even though it's a lot of money, I think that's the goal, right? Is to get to that $1 million range after the micro budget level so that you could be thought of for at least those mid-tier budget opportunities.
So you can go from a micro budget filmmaker to a low budget filmmaker, basically. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly just feel like it's all really about the story and the script that you've written and the circumstances that you've created around the project, because, you know, it's like whatever it takes to get the thing made, I think is what I really want, you know, like whatever we need to do this right. You know, if it's a crazy sci-fi movie with tons of visual effects and everything, well, like we probably shouldn't try to make it for, you know, $20,000 or $40,000 or whatever. Like we should probably try to make it for over $1 million or more if it's really that kind of movie, or we just don't make that movie now and we make another movie, you know. But watching all those Joe Bob Briggs drive-in movies and like hearing about the different budget levels for those and how like some of them were the equivalent of under $100,000 today, based off of the money back then and film and costs and stuff. It just really inspires me to be like, well, why not? Like, why not just raise whatever money you can and go make a movie, you know?
Well, yeah, but I mean, that works for horror, right? It works
Right.
for exploitation. But if you have that indie drama with no cast, you're in a different camp. You're going to have a lot of trouble, unfortunately, getting it out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, indie dramas, it's a tough one. You know, it's a tough situation to be in. I feel like genre is so much more forgiving on the younger filmmaker, you know, in a lot of ways. But I was just thinking, like, just editing my movie and like seeing what kind of movie it is and what kind of weird movie I made. That's like, you know, it's a thriller, it's a science fiction movie, but it's also got lots of drama in it as well, and like, you know, kind of standard drama stuff and relationship stuff and everything. I just think like, oh man, I should just go out and make like a balls to the walls like genre movie, like a crazy horror movie or a crazy sci-fi movie.
Come to my world. Come to the world of horror.
That just like, you know, goes for it and has fun, and you don't necessarily have to be as precious about like, you know, you still want good character motivation, you still want great, you know, whatever story and dialogue and everything, but you can just also just have more fun with it because you're doing something that's more heightened.
I'm having so much fun writing the script because my trajectory, the whole way of organizing the outline is like, who dies first, who dies second, who, like, that's all I have to figure out. Like, there are themes, there's substance, but really I'm like, does this character die now or in like 10 pages? And I love that. It's like, I love the simplicity of like, because then it'll be the edit, it'll be cinematography, it'll be performances to be like, build suspense and have fun and manipulate. And it's not like all of the, I think you can play a mind game with yourself in drama and trying to figure out motivations and arcs. And now it's like, survive. Your goal is to survive as a character. And that sounds really fun to think about that simplicity.
Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. We do have some shout outs that we need to do.
Just have one. Yeah,
it was they said Quibi shout out, which I mean, what's that like?
I didn't see that one.
How Quibi failed. This is from Lucas Kolshaw, designer extraordinaire. I don't know. He wants us to like a rest in peace for Quibi. Did you ever think Quibi was going to be a thing? Did you ever take it seriously?
No. Well, I always think something's going to be real because there was money behind it, right? And there was like a real infrastructure behind it. They got some pretty fancy people. So I always believe that money will kind of make things succeed. But I didn't watch anything on Quibi. I don't watch one thing. No, me neither. I mean, there was lots of actors I liked and, you know, stories that seemed interesting, but it's like when you tell me it's going to be a 10-minute thing, I'm not automatically just don't care as much. I'm just like, I want to sit down. I want to be entertained for at least 30 minutes. Or like 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
It's either needed to be super short, like 2 minutes, or it needs to be longer.
Yeah. I feel
that's funny. What is the other thing? Oh, he said vote. He said, so tell people to vote.
This will come out after the election, won't it?
Yes.
We hope you have voted. We hope that you've done that. Voted. Please vote.
We hope the world has not ended as a result of the election.
The results. I really am nervous about that. And then Erica Longo, actor, writer extraordinaire, said, whoopee. She wants us to say whoopee.
Whoopee. Cool. Lucas had one other thing. Oh, flu shot. Okay, I don't know what to say about that.
To get your flu shot. Lucas is just looking out for everyone right now. Like, he's like, don't be Quibi. Don't be a Quibi. Like, vote and take care of yourselves with flu shot. Thank you, Lucas.
It's like he had his to-do list and then he just told us his to-do list and he was like, oh yeah, Quibi. Too bad. Cool. Well, I think without further delay, let's get to our conversation with Joe Bob, and then don't go anywhere when the interview's over, because Liz and I did something we never do. We had a post-mortem discussion about our discussion with Joe Bob because it was such a exciting moment for both
pivotal
of us.
For us.
Yeah. And you'll see why in the first few minutes of this interview. But anyways, enjoy. All right, well, welcome Joe Bob to the show. Thanks for coming today.
Sure.
Even if it's just via phone. The first question we have for you is just a general question. It's very, very vague and broad, but what do you feel, how do you feel about the general state of horror today?
General state of horror? Man, I have no idea. I don't know what that means. I just, wow, horror is horror. You know, it's like 200 years old. I don't understand questions like that. Sorry, I can't.
Well, it's okay. I can follow up with a more specific one if to get us in a different direction.
That was Liz's question. I'm just I'm gonna put that on her. That wasn't my question.
People actually answer that question.
We actually brainstormed because we were so excited to talk to you, Joe Bob, that we had like an intense session of like, what questions should we ask him? And I think I'm overthinking a lot of it. My second question is, well, like, ironically, drive-ins are incredibly popular these days, of course, due to the pandemic. And I just wanted to hear a little bit about how you feel the industries will be impacted by everything that's going on. Like, do you think we'll make more exploitation and smaller non-union films?
Exploitation films are always piggybacks on mainstream films. And so when a movie like It makes $700 million or whatever it made, or a movie like, Halloween makes $500 million, then that's good for exploitation. That's very good for exploitation, because that means that all those scripts that weren't being made, that were being passed around Hollywood, and everyone's talking about how great they are, but they're too dangerous. All of those get made now. The secret to making more and more and more low budget films is that the high budget films are successful because all the producers are want to be in horror. Horror goes in cycles. We're in a time of maximum horror, where everybody wants to have a horror film. And so that's good. That's good for everybody. It's good for the writers. It's good for the directors. It's not good for people trying to find a cheap script, because the scripts become very, very valuable. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
What are some movies that you feel like have come out or been made since It that like fit in that category that maybe wouldn't have been made if it hadn't been so, popular?
That's a good question. Let me approach it from a different angle, though. There's a movie called The Barn. Okay, it's a micro budget movie. It's not a great movie, but it's a good movie. And because we're in a time of maximum horror, the director of that film was able to take it around to all the horror conventions and show it repeatedly and sell his DVDs and bring his cast members and promote it on social media and give it like a 2-year ride before he ever released it to Amazon or Netflix. And the result of that is he made a huge, huge profit on it. And he'll be able to make many other micro budget films. Okay, so that's the way a healthy atmosphere for horror affects the micro budget guys. You can make a film. Well, I mean, you can make a film on your iPhone if you want to. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can make a quality film. I mean, a technically a quality film from a technical point of view for $50,000. I mean, a film that doesn't lack anything. And you can make a film for $5,000, but I'm talking about a film where you pay for everything. It's not just your friends. It's not just volunteers, And so the fact that we have all these $50,000 films, we don't have a lot of great $50,000 films, but we have a lot of films that otherwise wouldn't be in the marketplace. And that's because there are really successful films out there.
We also have questions about your, I guess, should we call it an alter ego? Your personality and your on-screen personality. Are we allowed to ask about that, Joe Bob? Are we allowed to acknowledge John?
I don't really know. I don't know exactly what you mean, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we wanted to hear a little bit about both Alrik and I love the rants that you do on Drive-In Show.
Uh-huh.
And we wanted to hear how much of the political rants are you and how much are this character that you've created over the years and have lived
Well,
through.
first of all, I hope that they're not political. I try to stay away from politics, but at various times, I'm proud of the fact that at various times I've been attacked by the right and the left, and that I've never had any particular axe to grind politically, and never endorsed a candidate, or never done anything that would be partisan. My job is to point out ironies in the culture, and things where people are saying one thing and doing another, and so that's all I do with my rants. Is I just try to find the pomposity and the ridiculousness in modern life and talk about it. I don't go at it from any kind of point of view at all. I'm just an observer of the many ways that people lie to one another, and I find that funny. I find humor in that. It's like I used to say, look, here's what I do. I put a machine gun on a swivel, and I just hit different targets. I hit this one, that one, this one, that one, the other one, and about 1 in 20 targets will scream. So I hit that one 20 more times. And that's how you discover what the sacred cows are in the culture. And hopefully that's how you destroy the sacred cows. Now, I don't do that so much anymore, because whereas people used to beg me to make fun of them, I would see them, they would say, hey, you've never made fun of my church, and when are you going to do a rant about my religion, or whatever. And that was the atmosphere for most of my career. Is Joe Bob? I would get answered. Humor would be answered with humor. In the past, I don't know, like 2 years, it's humor gets answered with hate a lot of times, and so there are certain things that I don't approach anymore. I just don't go there, and I think it may be that satire. Maybe we're not in an age of satire anymore. Maybe people don't want it anymore. Maybe I should stop writing it. Maybe I should stop talking about it, because if it ceases to be fun, then it ceases to have a purpose, And so I've been very discouraged the last 2 or 3 years. I guess the Trump era. I've made fun of every president since Carter, I guess. That's sort of what satirists do. We make fun of the president, but I've never gotten the level of pushback when you make fun of Trump, and he's exceptionally fun to make fun of, but I've never had the sort of like assumptions about my motives when I make fun of the president. You have to make fun of the president. That's what we do. Doesn't matter who the president is. You have to make fun of him. Sort of you're not an American if you're not doing that, in my opinion. But there's certain assumptions made today if you make fun of anything or anybody. And so, this is a long answer to what you're asking me. But my rants have always been nonpartisan. They'll continue to be nonpartisan. But there are certain things that I just don't go there, because there's a whole social media, instant backlash if you even approach the topic. And so that to me is a degenerate culture. That's a culture that has declined that's not a healthy culture. And nevertheless, I'm not going to make it worse by going into areas that people don't want to hear me talk about. So right. Is that a good answer?
Oh yeah.
Yes, but
absolutely.
Please don't stop with the rants. I think you.
Yeah, keep the rants.
Yeah, don't stop with the rants.
No.
Our favorite part.
I do the rants. I just don't. I don't do them the way I used to do them. I just rant about different things. So anyway, but yeah, as far as alter ego goes, nobody wants to talk to John Bloom. Joe Bob is more interesting, and so Joe Bob is a heightened version of John Bloom, a more interesting version of John Bloom. I would say that's the way to understand it.
So the next question is about the show, like now that you're back doing the show on Shudder, like what are some things that you want to do with the show that you haven't gotten to do yet? Or is there certain movies that you still want to cover that you haven't talked about? Like, are there any things that we can be excited about in the future?
Yeah, there are lots of movies that, we have a hard time getting the rights to. I guess the bad thing about horror being so popular is that horror becomes expensive to license. And so there's lots of stuff that we can't show that, whereas when I was on Monster Vision at TNT, well, first of all, Ted Turner had accumulated the biggest movie library in the world. So we had a lot of stuff, like in our closet, but they could also license, more recent titles fairly easily. The stuff that we wanted for my show were not desired by anybody else, and so that's not true anymore. What with all the streaming services and the various ways of delivering movies. A lot of times it's just not available. Somebody's, snapped it up for the next 2 years because they want to do, the 2000 greatest movies for Halloween, all in October, and so that movie's not available to us, but nevertheless, we have enough. I mean, we have enough to choose from that I usually find something that I love, either something that I love or something that's fun to make fun of that I don't love.
The next question comes to us via my husband, who got me into you.
Okay.
And he said, you talk a lot about how you feel the greatest movie ever made was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he wants to know what the second greatest movie ever made was.
The second greatest movie ever made? Oh boy. Well, my opinion changes from year to year. I would probably say Hellraiser. I think it's a damn near perfect movie, but there are lots of contenders for that crown. We would almost have to break it down by subgenres. Horror comedy, I would say Basket Case is still my yes. Is still my all-time favorite horror comedy. I mean, some people don't think it's a comedy, but I do. People always want to name something from Italy in their top 10 list. And it's actually a pet peeve of mine. They act like all the Italian films are better than the American films. There's no way you can say the Italian films were better than American films. We were putting out 100 a year. They were putting out 10. So it's really apples and oranges. But anyway, of those films, I would say maybe Deep Red, which we had on the show. Maybe Zombie 2 would be somewhere on the list. Maybe Suspiria. I'm not as big a fan of Suspiria as most people are. I would be more a fan of Zombie 2, I think. Is any of this helpful?
All of it is helpful every time.
Okay.
So Liz and I are both filmmakers. We both, are making films. Liz is writing a horror film right now. I'm finishing up a sci-fi, thriller, I guess. So the question is, oh yeah, thanks. What would you want to see happen in the genre going forward? Like, what should us young filmmakers be focusing on?
Well, you say you're making a sci-fi film?
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of disappeared after the 80s is the quality, low budget science fiction. I mean, we'll always have, for the rest of recorded time, we'll have great, $100 million science fiction films. But Roger Corman was kind of the last guy trying to make low budget sci-fi, of high quality, low budget sci-fi. And I think there's a there's an opportunity there to return to that. I mean, the key to it is sci-fi doesn't have to be 100% effects filled. It doesn't have to be that. There's lots of great sci-fi fiction that's not about, exploding stars and shit. And so that would be something where I think, there's sort of a dearth of material. There's always room for martial arts films. The problem with martial arts films is great actors tend to not be great martial artists, and martial artists tend to not be great actors. And there's only about 3 plots for those films. But if you can do one well, there's always a demand for that. There's always a market for that. The third thing I would say is just generally low-budget action films. The low-budget action film is also something that's kind of been neglected in recent years. I think partly for political reasons. I think that a lot of young filmmakers think that they're right-wing. If you look at the classic action films of the past, especially the ones in the 70s and 80s, they were right-wing. An action film doesn't have to be right-wing, And so I think if young filmmakers would embrace that genre, but again, the problem is, can you find great actors who are athletic enough to do the stunts, and can you do the stunt work for a low budget? But all of those are genres I think that could use more input from low budget guys. Low budget, the young filmmakers come out of film school and the first thing they make is a documentary. Really? It's like, is the world that hungry for documentaries? We have 19,000 documentaries every year. We have a documentary on every film ever made. There's the film, and then there's a documentary about the film. We have a documentary on every actor who ever lived. It's like, stop with the documentaries. Go make a movie.
What about you, Joe Bob? You have so much respect for storytellers. Why not direct? Why not produce?
Well, I would love to produce, and I'm trying to produce. I would be a terrible director because it's so detail oriented. It's so incredibly detail oriented. You have to be. It takes a very, very special individual to direct, and you have to be a multitasker. The reason I think directors fail is that it's like those guys that used to be on the Ed Sullivan show that balance plates on the tops of bamboo poles, and you spin the plate on the pole, and then you get about 30 of them going, and then you run back and forth across the stage trying to keep, the last plate spinning. That's sort of what a director does, and there aren't that many people that have the patience and the stamina to do that. But I really admire the ones who do. I admire anybody who finishes a film. That's an amazing thing. I would like to produce, and I have some. Oh man, they're at a tentative stage, but I have some projects lined up, and I hope I can find some great directors and writers and editors. Who can, bring some low budget stories to life. So that is something I'm going to try to do.
So we have a lot of first time filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers, people who are looking to make their first movie, listen to the show. What advice do you have to the person who maybe hasn't even picked up a camera yet, or wants to pick up a camera and make a movie, but hasn't, made the step or the leap yet?
Well, my advice is to pick up a camera. Don't wait another day. If you truly want to be a filmmaker, then start being a filmmaker tomorrow. There's no excuse really to not be doing it, because there's no longer any financial reason why you can't do it. If you compare the editing software of the year 2000 to editing software today, it's about 98% cheaper. If you compare the cameras you would have had to use in the year 2000 to the cameras you can buy today, it's about 1,000 times cheaper. If you compare anything as far as the cost of making films today, there's no longer any money barrier to making a movie. A lot of times I go to festivals where a lot of young filmmakers have their latest film, and the technical quality is almost always superb. The problems with the films are writing problems, sometimes acting problems. They're things that don't cost any money. The weak link in the micro budget world, low budget world, is scripts. The scripts aren't fully formed when they're shot, and so that's one reason I'm going into production, is to have a pre-production process where the scripts are sharpened up before the shooting starts. There are a lot of good technical directors. They just don't have the storytelling chops to write the script themselves, and they don't have a partner who can do the script for them.
How are you sourcing these projects?
We're really getting deep into the weeds here, so I hope we're not boring. I hope we're not boring people with these technical problems, But how am I sourcing the films?
Yeah.
Starting with the scripts. We're starting with buying the scripts or commissioning the scripts. A great script can almost overcome any other failure, and a bad script can almost never overcome any failure. And so I'm very writer oriented. I'm very much an encourager of young writers, and a lot of times the directors take a shortcut by writing it themselves, which I think is a mistake, because there's only been about 5 people in history that could do both. They could do both well. They could do both at a high level. And so I'm sourcing the projects with acquisition of scripts.
I just made a face because I had to write my first feature, and I think if I had the option,
no, don't make a face. I mean, like almost everyone has to do that, but in an ideal situation, no one would ever do that. You would have a team, and the team would consist principally of a writer, director, and an editor.
Right.
In some cases, you would add to that team production designer, and under production design, I would include all effects and everything else that goes into production design.
Right.
But those 3 people, rarely do you have the skills of all 3. You can do all 3. Anybody, an editor can direct, a director can edit, but one reason I want to be a producer as opposed to writing something or acting in something is to put together these teams. Put together people who wouldn't know about each other unless I put them together. And so that's kind of what I'm doing.
And then here's
in other words, I'm saying to directors who are great directors, I'm saying, would you agree to direct this other guy's script?
Right.
And I'm saying to writers, I know you want to direct your script, but would you let this other guy direct it, please? I'm doing things like that because I really do believe it's a collaborative art form, and it's already compromised by money. And so you have to make as few artistic compromises as possible to get a good result. And so I'm trying to be that guy that comes in and says, we ought to do it this way as a producer, in order to make all of them shine, the director and the writer and the editor.
So here's a really big question for the last question. And hopefully it's not too big of a question, but you're talking about, it's really easy to make movies. We all know there's so many movies out there right now. There's thousands and thousands of movies being made all the time. What can we do as filmmakers to help our films stand out and get seen? Like what's the secret there? Or is there a secret answer there?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's harder than ever to make a small film stand out in this huge media environment that we have. You need to be a master of exploitation. Exploitation historically means marketing. It means you've found ways, if you're at a studio, marketing means how much money do you have to spend on the marketing budget. If you're not at a studio, marketing means exploitation. You have to replace that money with some other form of exploitation. And that exploitation can take the form of massive social media. It can take the form of festivals. It can take the form of going to conventions and selling your movie one DVD at a time, which I know people who have done that successfully. There's no like single answer when it's your first film and when you're starting out. But what it takes is spending as much time and energy on the exploitation of your film that you spent on making the film. And a lot of people give up too soon. And you know what they do when they give up? They sell it to Amazon.
That's funny.
You know how many hits you have to make a nickel on Amazon? It's crazy. It's like, well, at least people will see my film. No, don't say that. Don't say that. Sell your film. Don't give it away.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Joe Bob. This is a thrill to have you involved in any way. So we really appreciate it.
Well, we went into areas I don't normally go into, so that's interesting.
Amazing. Well, good luck on all your upcoming shows, and maybe we'll see you at one of them. Oh my God. We just talked to Joe Bob.
I know. It was amazing. Sorry about that first question and throwing you under the bus there. I felt bad.
It doesn't matter because I continuously threw myself under the bus from that point on. Like, it didn't matter. It was just like, it was so exciting, but I kept like trying to impress him, and then I kept on tripping over my words, and then I just got excited that he was there.
Yeah. Well, I think we were a little off to a rough start with that first question, because he definitely did not like that first question. No. He was like, who are these idiots with this stupid ass question? And then you came in and go with the second question, which was a good question. And I was like, okay, I'm glad she asked that question.
I was happy with it, but then I kept thinking, like, should I mention the cameo? Like the fact that Sean bought me a cameo of Joe Bob, and I was like, should I mention it? Should I thank him? Should I tell him I'm in horror now? Like, and then I just started thinking, obsessing over his evaluation of our questions, so much so that I just was like, let it go.
I was like, because I was thinking about this when we were watching his show. Like, he doesn't like stupid questions, and I was like, man, hopefully we don't ask a stupid question. And then the first thing I do is ask a stupid question, and I'm like, oh my God, what an idiot. Why did you ask such a well, it's not even that stupid. I don't know. But yeah, it's like a question that he would find stupid. You're right.
I forgot the origin. But the origin of the question was, I wanted to talk about Mike Flanagan. And I wanted to know, how did he think about the state of horror, specifically this kind of like interesting spin on like domestic horror stories that Mike Flanagan's doing. And I like didn't write any of those notes. So when the question came up, I didn't even realize it was my question. I didn't even wonder why someone would ask that question. So I just, again, I threw myself under the bus too.
That's funny.
But now we talked to Joe Bob.
Yeah, we talked to Joe Bob. The thing I wanted to say that I thought was really interesting is like when you asked the alter ego question, and he kind of like pretended that wasn't a real question, and then at the end of his answer, talking about some other things, he answered it.
He answered it, and it was great. Cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was exactly what we wanted. We were thinking it was.
I mean, I regret the word political for sure. I regret saying political rants, because I guess I think of them as political rants, but they're not. They're not partisan, but they talk about like diverse, political issues that are contentious, which I think are political in nature, but not partisan. So
like the whole Gillette commercial thing, that he talked about.
I don't even remember the Gillette commercial. I'm looking at Sean. Sean nodded. He's like, yeah, the Gillette commercial thing. I was thinking about like the objectification of women in social media thing that I think he did because Darcy was getting a lot of hate on social media.
I haven't come across that episode yet. I have to watch that one. Yeah.
That was so cool. I like now can relax and drink sake.
I hope everyone else likes this as much as we did. Because that was great. I thought it was really interesting. I think he said a lot of great things. And I don't know. I wonder how many other Joe Bob fans there are out there. If it's like me and you are like.
There's tons. We posted about how we're interviewing him, and like we got like a bunch of likes.
But how many questions did we get? We got like no questions.
No, I don't know. People are lazy. That was the other thing. It's like I also regret the question. This is just going to be therapy. Sorry, Alrik.
Sure.
I regret the question, how do you source those projects? Because of course I know from the script, but I wanted to know, is he going to agents and managers, or is he accepting open solicitations? And then how can I get my script to Joe Bob? Like, that's what I want to know.
That was I love these questions. You're very basic on the surface, but then underneath, like,
there's so much
layers to like what you really wanted to ask. Yes. But you maybe should have just asked those questions and not the top layer question.
I already offended him with the first question, so I was like, I'm gonna play it safe. Yeah, no, and he's great. You can like picture him. I don't think he heard us very well every single time, though.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe it was a Zoom thing. We heard him so well, but I'm wondering if the connection wasn't as great on his end.
I'm just thinking about this episode when you guys watch it. It's just going to be Joe Bob's face whenever he's talking, just like a photo I find of him.
And it's going to be me looking at Sean so that we could exchange looks about how great the response was from Joe Bob, and then going back to camera.
Is Sean still there? Can he? I want to know if he'd like the answer to
I have
his
to ask
question.
Him. He's not listening. Sean, did you like the answer to your question about Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Sean, a very chatty person, just said, yeah. So he did like the answer.
Yeah. One word. That's awesome. All right. Well, this has been really great. I don't know if we're going to air this with the interview or if we're going to even air this at all, but I just wanted to.
We should air this. We should put this on the YouTube channel, this discussion about. In fact, why don't we, if we can, we could post this whenever you have time. Like, not right now, obviously, but like, if you have time in the next few days, it could just be a tease to the
to the Joe Bob episode.
I think so.
Okay, cool. All right, so this is a preview now, all of a sudden, to the Joe Bob conversation that we just had. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I don't know. I'm a new fan, right? Like I think I watched him when I was younger on TNT, but like really been digging his last drive-in show a lot. So I don't know. This is cool. And I want to be one of those directors, like you're saying, that he picks and pushes together with someone else. I was like, oh my God, I got to finish my movie so he can see it, love it. And then when I hire me in the future.
And then get to be on the show and get to sit at that like wonderful trailer setting. And then also get to hang out with Felissa Rhodes and Darcy.
Who is Felissa Rhodes? I don't know.
She's the mangled dick expert. I'm sorry. Do you not?
I know she's the mangled dick expert, but I don't know anything else about her. Is she an actor?
She's in you actually just know her as the mangled dick. That's so funny.
That's all I know her as.
She's in Sleepaway Camp. And there's if you have to see Sleepaway Camp if you haven't already, and I won't give it away, but there's a reason she's called the mangled dick expert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just know her from like the time she's come on the show, and then they have that really ridiculous picture of her that they put on, and then she like says ridiculous things.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. She's charming.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. And thanks to Joe Bob Briggs for being on the show, and for Tracy V, his assistant, for arranging it all. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. There's probably things to plug for Joe Bob. He's on Shudder. He's got his show, The Last Drive-In, which you can watch, I think, most of the episodes on Shudder right now. Although there's a couple of movies that they don't have the rights for anymore that you can't watch the episodes. It's very frustrating. But anyways, and I think he has a new special that he just did, but I didn't
We're
see it
watching
on
right
Shudder.
now, The Haunted Hideaway,
cool.
where they show Haunt, which I'm
nice.
Getting through because it's a little scary, so we have to watch it in parts.
But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was a big one for us. You can check out our website at makingmoviesishard.com, where you can find the links to the things we talked about in this episode, including lots of Joe Bob related stuff, including our favorite clips of Joe Bob. I know Liz has one that she showed me that was like the first thing I saw about Joe Bob, really, like since like from TNT back in the day or whatever, and it was like, wow, this guy's cool. So check that out. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can send an email to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com, or you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at MMIH Podcast. And I'm Alrik B on Twitter and Instagram. And Liz, where are you?
I'm Liz Manischal on Twitter and Liz Manischal Film on Instagram.
And then please, if you like the show, tell a friend, help us get the word out. You can leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher, leave a comment on YouTube now. We love those. Those are fun. Tell people on YouTube to watch our show. I don't know. Good. That's the thing I think you can do. No, I don't think you can do that. You can just share YouTube links on other things. So do that. I guess thanks to
Alrik. Yeah. Thanks to you for editing the show.
We should say the last one we said thanks to me was actually going to be thanks to Carly, one of our new editors, because she's editing that one right now. So can't wait to hear it. So thank you, Carly, for last week's episode, and we will talk to you guys next week. Get ready, because it's going to blow your minds.
All right,
I love your dance. It's amazing. I put that in the next episode.
Yeah, I only do it in this show. It just comes out of me.